Two step-siblings promise to get over their past, but the moment they are given some time alone, they don't waste a second seducing each other and are about to commit the deed. However, we will get back to this later. In a weird turn of events, two former lovers become step-siblings as Yume's mother and Mizuto's father marry each other, though their parents never know about their children's relationship. Ever since this shock, the two barely get along well with one another and constantly try to avoid each other as much as possible. As one of them is about to leave home, the other also realizes they have something and another argument takes place between the two. Though Yume's biological mother, unintentionally sets them up to go together, and they have all the freedom but to decline her request. Later at the dinner, Miniaki and Yume discuss how well the two get along, even though they anticipated problems since immediately living with the opposite gender isn't easy. Hearing this, Yume instructs Mizuto to act like a good brother as they wouldn't want to disappoint their parents. Afterward, Mizuto is reading in his room when Yume barges in and demands that he starts calling her his older sister. This stirs another disagreement as Mizuto believes he's the older one among them. However, Yume hasn't come unprepared. She pulls out the whole analysis about how she was born 30 minutes earlier than him, and thus it makes her more privileged. Since Mizuto still disagrees with her logical conclusion, they decide that anytime one of them brings up their past and acts like a lover would make that person the younger sibling. Immediately after, Yume starts provoking him deliberately to make him slip his tongue and starts checking out his various books. Mizuto tries reasoning, but the other is affirmed that this is normal sibling behavior and tries to take out a reaction from him. Mizuto is worried since his Pandora's box, a thematic magazine, is lying inside the drawer and doesn't want her to lay eyes on it. His worried face doesn't escape her gaze and she reaches out to the drawer. Though Mizuto isn't one to just sit back and observe, but starts apologizing for always acting like an idiot, much to her surprise. This accidentally makes Yume refer to him by his last name, a former habit, and Mizuto is swimming in joy as he gets to be the older brother and can make her shamefully refer to him as such. Embarrassed, Yume immediately runs away, and the other can peacefully get back to reading now. The following day, they head off to school and are forced to have their high school debut photos taken together by their parents. During the on-stage speech from the principal, Mizuto instructs her to worry about herself as she's just a friendless nerd and tells her this is an opportunity for her to make new friends. Much to his shock, Yume had higher grades than Mizuto in the entrance exam and she is now the class rep. Other boys use all kinds of techniques to get closer to her, and some even try to get closer to Mizuto to get a chance to talk to his sister. He is annoyed that she has already spread the news of the two being step-siblings, but doesn't have the freedom to stop her from doing so either. After he gets back, Yume confronts him about this, and he assures her that she shouldn't worry about mild stuff like this. The next day, she is following him closely on their way to school. They had promised each other to go separately, and Mizuto is annoyed by this as he feels it will attract unwanted attention. The same boys once again try to get closer to Mizuto, but Yume is here to the rescue, and just creates more misunderstanding by telling them she has a brother complex. Later, the two are alone and their parents notify them that they would be late. Since Yume is a terrible cook, Mizuto decides to make dinner, and this infuriates Yume as she thinks he is looking down on her. She deliberately comes out of the bath with just a towel covering her body and tries to make him slip. Unfortunately, she is not careless enough and messes up the whole situation. Mizuto instantly realizes this and gives her clothing to cover herself, but the next thing they knew, he was on top of her. Yume realizes that they are all but acting, and as they are about to progress, their parents arrive. Yume is forced to hide, while Mizuto acts like he was just chilling here. While chilling in his class, Mizuto is approached by a rather livelier student, Kovier, who immediately reaches out his hand for friendship. Mizuto feels he is just another playboy trying to get closer to Yume, and warns him that he isn't going to get anything by doing this. However, Kogier is being genuine in his response and tells him that he shouldn't worry as he isn't really interested in Yume. Though he does tell him to look behind to lay his eyes on a spectacle, and the second he does, Mizuto finds Yume embarrassed about his earlier remarks. Afterward, they have a fitness test and Yume has her chest weirdly analyzed by another girl, Minami. The other is impressed with her huge size and feels pessimistic about hers, although Yume assures her that they will grow bigger soon as such happened to her. Hearing this, Minami finds hope and the two have their bust sizes checked. Later, it is time for physical activities and Yume misunderstands Minami's response by telling her that they suck. She has an impression that Minami is just bad at physical activities just like her and feels good that at least there is someone else beside her who isn't so active. However, the second Minami heads off to give her test, Yume is flabbergasted as she is a full-fledged tomboy, possessing immense strength. Even though she is bad at physical activities, Yume just couldn't sit back and let others make fun of her. She has read several books and watched TV shows about them along with practicing to protect herself from embarrassment. However, it comes at the cost of sleep as she had hardly received time for rest. Immediately after the test, she's about to fall down when Mizuto saves her and instructs Minami to take her to the infirmary. After she wakes up, she explains the whole thing about not getting any sleep to Minami, and the other person perfectly understands her reasoning and even encourages her, that it is these things that make them aspire to achieve greater heights. On their way back, Mizuto teases her by telling her she has bags beneath her eyes before disappearing completely from her eyes. The following day, Yume is stuck down with a fever, and Minami is incredibly worried about her. As she's trying to get the whole detail out of Mizuto, Kogure stops her from doing so as it will irritate the others. However, she is just too concerned about her friend and wants to see her. Kogure also decides to join them, but she just tells him to buzz off and not be a nuance. On their way back, Minami continues to pry out on their past, and Mizuto does his best to hide relevant details from her. As the two enter Yume's room, she can only spot Mizuto and refers to him just like she did in the past, embarrassing him. Though the moment she realizes Minami is also there, she feels ashamed of herself. Minami is the type to have every detail unfolded in her arsenal and instructs Mizuto to help her cook for Yume as she's heard he's a nice cook. Minami gives attention to the body language and deduces that Mizuto once had a girlfriend and is surprisingly assured that he is single now. She inquires whether he would need Yume's permission to bring a girl over, and he responds that he isn't planning on getting mingled with anyone anytime soon, although he's impressed with her awareness. After she leaves, Mizuto enters her room to check on her and reminisces about a past he once bore. He fell in love with her in 7th grade, and the two would talk about all sorts of books together. Though disagreements led to more, and the two eventually decided to split up. Presently, Yume wants to hold his hand as she is frightened that he will leave her once more. However, he assures her that he will be there for her whenever she so desires. Unfortunately for her, Mizuto finds out that she was only pretending to be sick to get his attention, and reveals that she was just concerned she would be lonely in a clouded world, even though he just told her that he would be the breeze for Spring's garden. While they were still dating 6 months back, Yume would keep all the things she would receive from him in a little box and would worship them like a cult follower. Among many things, she had gotten her hands on Mizuto's underwear, and believing that it will only bring more trouble as it is a violation of rules, she is determined to return them without his awareness. However, as she is about to enter his room, the other opens his door and both of them find their private items in each other's hands. Since they have stuff to explain, both sit in the living room to discuss how they got their hands on these items. Yume explains how she would keep around his things as a habit, and that she accidentally got her hands on his underwear recently. Hearing this, Mizuto blushes, indicating that he is happy about this. Mizuto explains that she left her bra out in the open, and he had to hide from his dad, so it found its way into his hands. Yume makes the exact same excuse, and even though the others hardly believe it, he decides to accept it and move along. The two decide that whoever violates another rule again will get a demand and can ask for anything as long as it doesn't infringe upon social norms. On her way to school, Yume is astonished to spot Mizuto at a cafe with a girl and is enraged that he has so quickly moved on. As she gets back from school, she finds 2 pairs of shoes and is convinced that he has brought the girl over to his house. Admitting this isn't easy for her, as it took a whole 6 months to see his house. She takes pictures of it as proof and uses her demand to make him go outside. Thinking that he has already left, she immediately heads over to his room to check up on the girl, but is shocked to find Mizuto still in there. She quickly gets back to check the shoes and doesn't find them anywhere. Mizuto tries hiding the fact by excusing that it would be some sort of paranormal activity and letting her ponder by herself. Yume still isn't convinced that everything happened for real and believes that she may be mistaken. On the other hand, Mizuto reveals that it was Minami who had been praying for him in a wig and wanted to marry him just so she could spend much time together with Yume. To solve this whole situation about her, he contacts Kogure, Minami's childhood friend, and the other explains how obsessive she is. Kogure does his best to scare him off and admits that there is a way to stop her from getting too mixed up with him. Afterward, Mizuto uses his demand and confesses to Yume to go out with him on a date. As a punishment for her violating a rule earlier, Mizuto demands that his stepsister spends the next day on a date with him. With no choice in hand, Yume agrees to it and gets ready on time to meet up with him outside the house. However, the moment she lays her eyes on him, her thoughts are bewildered as she finds him quite handsome. As they spend time together, acting close and all, Kogure and Minami spy on them, though the former has already informed Mizuto that he will be there. Their plan is to make Minami give up on Yume, as she will realize that Yume loves her brother more than anything. Still, Mizuto isn't sure whether everything will work out, as the entire thing is a hassle to go through. At the aquarium, he suddenly grabs her by her shoulder as planned, freaking the other one out. Though Yume quickly regains her composure and assures him that she can do well by herself. Minami witnesses all this and is quite jealous, but she still doesn't believe they love each other and has her suspicions. Afterward, the two split up as Mizuto headed to the bathroom, while Yum went outside to get some fresh air. Kogure assures Mizuto that they were acting like a perfect couple, while he himself felt that he ruined the entire setup. On the other hand, Yum is lost and doesn't have the guts to call her brother to tell him that. Fortunately, the other contacts her and surprisingly doesn't make fun of her when she admits to being lost. The exact situation once happened when they were younger and went on their first date. After nearly crying over being separated from him at a festival, the other finally finds her and promises her that he will be there for her whenever things get difficult for her. She isn't even finished reminiscing about the past when Mizuto finds her and humorously mocks her for having no sense of direction. Once they are done with their date, the two split up on their way home and Minami approaches Mizuto to apologize for sneaking inside his home. The other is ashamed for prying into a private life, but also resolves to marry him someday as she feels a rival just makes things interesting. Upon entering the home, Yum punishes him for the underwear incident and forces him to try out different poses for a photographic session as she finds him too attractive. Since Mizuto allowed her to desire whatever she wanted, she subjugates him to hugging her from behind, reliving the old time. Mother's Day is here and Yum feels that they should buy their mom some gifts. Mizuto doesn't feel like going with her and tells her he will buy something another day since it is such a hassle to go outside. However, the other feels that they should make some impression and make their mother believe that they get along well. Since Mizuto keeps declining her requests, she gets prepared enough to make him awe at her beauty. As a punishment for violating this rule, Mizuto has to go together with her, and the two get into another weird situation on the train. Though they handle it calmly and bring a bouquet to surprise their mom. Amazed, she quickly runs to her room to show the present to her husband. Afterward, Mizuto decides to pray for her mother who died when he was younger at the shrine, and Yum disrupts his peaceful time. Since their parents are newlywed, the two feel they should spend some time together while the step-siblings go out for a night. Since they are cheap on budget, Mizuto decides to check up on a love hotel, but the budget is like a giant tree compared to the seeds they carry. The two eventually settle for spending a night at Kogure's and Minami's place. After the 4 meetups, Yum realizes that Minami is more focused on talking to her brother even though she's her friend. Kogure immediately notices this and instructs the other to talk to Yum. The siblings are astonished to find they are such close neighbors, yet they don't get along too well with one another. Mizuto is curious to know, but he feels he shouldn't pry into other people's lives. However, Kogure doesn't feel ashamed of any type of question and immediately inquires whether Mizuto has seen Yum naked. Even though the other doesn't answer anything, he intentionally pranks him by teasing both siblings, and madness is unleashed on the other side of the thin wall. To get his revenge, Mizuto decides to read his personal diaries and reveals that Kogure has secret feelings for Minami, embarrassing and enraging the other. Later on, the four head out for dinner, where Minami pranks the two by spreading misinformation and deliberately making them mix up all the soda. This doesn't go too well with Yum, but what can she do now? The four continuously provoke each other while enjoying the long night. After Kogure goes to sleep, Mizuto decides to stare at the floating crystal up in the dark starry sky from the balcony. Surprisingly, Yum is also out, and the two discuss whether their destiny is to remain stuck as step-siblings. Mizuto believes that unless their parents unexpectedly decide to go their separate ways, the two are destined to be so. The first time Mizuto really caught Yum's attention was during their mid-exam earlier in their life. Even though she thought there was a rivalry between the two, Mizuto didn't seem to care about it in any way, and that led her to know him personally, gradually evolving to become lovers. Presently, the exams are approaching, and Yum, as the current top scorer, feels that she should defend her title as the topper of the class. On the other hand, Mizuto doesn't give much heed to the thought of attaining peaks in the exam and would feel content with anything as long as they are decent enough. Yum ignores him initially, thinking of beating him, but once she notices that he is handing her a victory, she just cannot sit back and relax. She confronts her brother in front of their mom and starts belittling him for his bare minimum efforts. The only reason Mizuto didn't give the correct answers during the paper was so his sister could retain the top spot, as it makes her happy. Yum begins to think that the rivalry never existed and she was the only one who ever cared about competing. However, when the results are announced, she realizes that Mizuto has attained the top spot, much to her amazement. Her only worry was that other students would start neglecting her if she dropped from her position, but seeing as her friends are as sincere as ever, she feels the grades don't matter too much, though she is still fixated on beating her brother in finals. Yum believes that her love for him has blossomed again and rushes out to the library to confront him. However, much to her surprise, he is preoccupied with a random girl who he seems to get along with pretty well. Izana is a severely introverted girl who has miraculously befriended Mizuto. As both are avid novel readers, it is easier for them to spend some time together and get along well. Ever since this incident, Yum has started to care for his brother by doing everything she could for him, to the point it makes him rethink their prior lives. Mizuto still doesn't understand the spiral of these events, but decides to heed not much mind. One day after leaving the school, Yume and Minami decide to confront them, but Izana is too shy and the others immediately leave, understanding her situation. Later, Mizuto enters Yume's room and instantly makes a move on her to tease her. All this was a plan to make her spit out everything, and he successfully makes Yume reveal her jealousy. The following day, he introduces Izana to her, while also admitting that the two don't have any feelings for each other, as Yume feared. Yume recalls her confession to Mizuto and feels embarrassed that she used such an old-age technique to propose to him. Presently, Izana finds a note in her locker, a threatening letter about revealing her secret. She promptly follows the instructions and heads off to the cafe where she is supposed to meet with the sender. Astonishingly, the senders were none other than Yume and Minami, who were keen on helping her out. The two were convinced that she has feelings for Mizuto, and to further make her believe it, they do some experiments on it, which proves in their favor. Izana doesn't feel like she is the right person for him and worries that their friendship will only suffer. However, the other two continuously encourage her. Seeing her lack of confidence, Yume remembers her earlier days when she was just like her and had a hard time dealing with her feelings. However, now Izana has friends and Yume doesn't want her to sit back and see her crush with someone else. As they need to be steady in their work, the two instruct her to spend time with Mizuto like normal, while occasionally showing her feminine side. At the library, the two watch from afar while she tries to make an impression. Unfortunately, even though she tries to provoke his lustful gaze, Mizuto is unbothered and just tells her to lower her skirt as her underwear was showing. This further embarrasses her, and she runs away to the bathroom to meet up with the others. Minami sees an opportunity for her to utilize her big busts, and she once again tries making moves on the other. However, he immediately instructs her to make some distance as her boobs are touching him. The three are flabbergasted and don't understand how come a man is unbothered by boobs. They continue coming up with new ideas to no avail, but luck just doesn't seem to be in Izana's favor as Mizuto only sees her as a friend, nothing more. The three reunite one more to create more opportunities for her, and they all agree on a direct confession. The following day, while the other two are hiding, Izana reveals how he is the only one to have genuinely communicated with her. Since the two have so much in common, Izana feels they should be together, having all the time for each other. However, the Wheel of Fate is as humorous as ever. Mizuno still has feelings for his stepsister, and the threads cannot be severed even by someone like Izana. Yume's pearly eyes get teary as she feels that whenever she tries to move on, the forbidden relationship looms in brilliance. Now that she's been rejected once, Izana doesn't feel like holding back and uses all sorts of dirty jokes to provoke him. Mizuto warns her that he would go as far as to break their friendship is the only way to protect oneself from her lustful eyes. Izana is interested in seeing his book collection, and Mizuto agrees to invite her to his home. The following day, she meets up with Yume and Minami, who are once again eager to help her make an impression by using their collective fashion sense. As Izana doesn't have any money, the two decide to pay up for everything, but on the condition that she wouldn't have to follow all their instructions. Izana tries various costumes and clothes, but all appears so lewd. Finally, one suit catches her attention and she sends a picture to Mizuto to ask his opinion. Gaining his approval, upon entering Mizuto's room, Izana is astonished by his collection and wants to spend the entire weekend reading them. Yume notices that she is being way too casual with her brother and questions it. However, Mizuto has no problem with his friend doing whatever she wants. After a while, Izana gets tired and asks Mizuto to rub her shoulders, excusing that her shoulders get stiff from carrying these huge bunkers. After she asks him to put on socks for her, Yume is infuriated and demands to know their relationship as she feels they are more than just friends. She gets an opportunity as she walks Izana to the bathroom and asks her about her feelings outside. Izana feels that she mayhaps like him more as a friend since she would be jealous if he got another friend. Regardless, her feelings aren't exactly clear. After getting back, Yume instructs Mizuto to treat him the same way and he tiresomely agrees. Just then, Izana gets into trouble as she is bombarded with questions from their parents and she doesn't have any idea how to handle these situations. After spending the entire day in his room, Izana leaves just before sunset. On their way, Mizuto can't help but wonder whether he would be close with Yume had they never dated. Before they were siblings, Yume and Mizuto would occasionally meet up at the library and the books drove their feelings for one another. After getting to know each other better, Yume needed help with a book, which coincidentally, Mizuto had in his collection, so he invited her home. She came in fully prepared to spend the time of her life together with him. However, the other was too nervous the whole time and thought she would kill him if even he so much as touched her. Unfortunately, they both are weak when it comes to revealing their feelings and Mizuto sees her off to her home. Afterward, they get separated after the exam as Yume now attends a different section and gradually makes some friends. She is excited about her new life and gives as much time to her friends as needed to improve her social life. However, this doesn't go too well with Mizuto as he feels she is distancing herself from him, and thus their communication takes a blow. He decides to formally apologize to her for this misunderstanding, but is caught up in another one when he is helping out another student and Yoon perceives it the wrong way. After the two meet up, Mizuto immediately apologizes for his childish behavior, while the other follows it up by accusing him of cheating. This further dissociates the two from one another, and multiple occasions pass without the two contacting one another. Yoon heads off to a festival without even contacting him, and yet she expects him to show up to be there for her. However, such dreams only come true in fairy tales, and she had to spend the entire night alone. Tired of this toxic relationship, the two eventually choose to break up. Presently, the two reveal how they were really feeling when Mizuto invited Yoon to her room the first time, and their regrets take the shape of mountains. Yoon and Mizuto are alone at home once more as their parents are caught up in the rain. In the midst of the night, Yoon spots a cockroach in her room and immediately rushes to Mizuto's room to seek help. The others use pesticides to get rid of it, but Yoon still doesn't feel like going back to her room as she feels more comfortable here. Mizuto has no choice but to spend the rest of the night together in the same bed with her, and wonders whether he still has some lingering feelings for her, though he quickly throws them afar. In the morning, the parents get back and tease them for almost acting like a couple in their rough patch. They instruct Yoon to head off to the market to buy a swimsuit for herself and Mizuto as they are planning on visiting their father's village, where there is nothing but water to enjoy. At the mall, Yoon is unsure about her suit and asks Mizuto for his assistance. In the bizarre turn of events, she reveals her swimsuit to him, right then and there making him question whether he should be passing an opinion over this. On their way back, they pass through the same alley where they shared their first kiss, but this time Mizuto is in control of his feelings. Afterward, they have a movie night with Asana, and Yoon is infuriated that she is so open with Mizuto. What happened to shame? Once they are done watching the movie, Asana is interested in hearing Mizuto's opinion and only cares about it when he mentions a fetish. The other is feeling sleepy and Asana urges him to rest in her lap. This doesn't go down too well with Yoon, and the two start a competition, with her winning it as the other subconsciously chooses her lap. After Asana leaves, Yoon is enticed to kiss him, but holds back as she feels she should move on. Later, Yumi wants to know her son better and asks her daughter about his relationship with Asana as she continues coming over. Yoon doesn't reveal much and just informs her that the two quite love each other. Her mom urges her to find a partner for herself too, but Yoon doesn't feel like competing with him. The promised day is here and they all head to meet with their relatives. Everyone welcomes the newlywed couple and the step-siblings, and Yoon is impressed at how energetic Mizuto's second cousin, Madoka, is. As they are getting ready to dive in, Madoka feels as though there are hidden feelings of Yoon for her stepbrother and informs her that ever since his childhood, Mizuto had avoided most people. Yoon is surprised when Mizuto leaves without even leaping into the water to freshen his body and mind. Later at night, he is busy reading a certain book when she approaches him and inquires about it. He reveals that it is a biography of his great-grandfather and covers his life as a prisoner of war and the hardships he faced. Shortly after, Mizuto decides to leave as he believes this book has shaped his entire personality and wants her to know, giving Yoon enough time to read it for herself. After she is finished reading it, she is overcome with emotions and a liquefied crystal drops out of her ivory eyes. She has a better understanding of him and concludes that Mizuto had feelings for Madoka as he revealed his first love to laugh. The following morning, she reaches out to Madoka, and the other immediately realizes she has feelings for him. After explaining what love is, she sets them up in a room where Yoon reveals her imprisoned emotions and both deduce that they are in a cage of feelings for each other. Yoon confronts him about his first love again, and he gives her a sign that she herself was his first love. The firework festival is about to begin, and everyone is excited to attend it. Yoon is charmful in her yukata, prompting Mizuto to take some pictures of her. During the festival, they partake in various challenges while also getting into arguments. Nonetheless, the fun is there for the two until they meet up with everyone and Mizuto vanishes. Madoka tells Yoon that he always disappears at this exact moment, and the other immediately has an idea of where his favorite spot is. On the other hand, Mizuto has some free time on his hands, and he ponders how his whole life had been nothing but fictitious until the point when he read the book of his great-grandfather. Prior to that experience, he always felt hollow and didn't understand why people would encourage him to get stronger and live longer. However, that book changed his life, blossomed so many ideas inside his tiny head, and made him realize the life one is given. The solitary reflection combined with the rustling of the trees fills his heart with emotions. But before he could unleash them, Yoon finds him and reveals how their first kiss went. She is surprised to know that as careless as he seems, he even bothered to remember the date of their first kiss, and vows to win his heart over. As the fireworks are done, Mizuto finds her lips chewing on his in a rushed moment as Yuma admits to still having a slot for him in her heart. After their vacations are over, Mizuto introduces Izana to Kogure, who feels disappointed as she is acting too casual with him. On the other hand, he now has no feelings for anyone but one person, his stepsister, Yoon. While some time may have passed, their love is as bright as the 14th sprout. What do you think of their life ahead? Let us know in the comments. For now, leave us a like and subscribe for more content.